Welcome once again to Unit 2 of Population Genetics and Evolution, Session 3, Polygenic Inheritance in Animal and Plant Populations. By the end of this session, you should be able to identify animal and plant characters that are controlled by polygenes and inherited accordingly, and distinguish between polygenic and monogenic or oligogenic traits, then solve genetic problems in animals and plants involving polygenic inheritance. Polygenic inheritance describes the inheritance of traits that are determined by more than one gene. This type of inheritance differs from Mendelian inheritance patterns in which traits are determined by one gene. Polygenic traits have many possible phenotypes that are determined by interactions among several alleles. Examples of polygenic inheritance in humans include traits such as skin color, eye color, hair color, body shape, height, and weight. In polygenic inheritance, the genes contributing to a trait have equal influence, and the alleles for the gene have an additive effect. So polygenic traits do not exhibit complete dominance, as do Mendelian traits, but exhibit incomplete dominance, in which one allele does not completely dominate or mask another. The phenotype is a mixture of the phenotypes inherited from the parent alleles. Environmental factors can also influence polygenic traits. Polygenic inheritance explains many plant and animal traits where there is a wide variation between extreme phenotypes, with most individuals having intermediate phenotypes. On the contrary, the garden pea studied by Gregor Mendel involved pairs of alleles with only 3 possible genotypes and 2 phenotypes per trait. For example, the gene for round pea, dominant R, is dominant over the gene for wrinkled pea, that's recessive R, and only 3 genotypes are possible: dominant R, recessive R, and recessive RR. These 3 genotypes produce only 2 phenotypes: the round, that's dominant, and round codominant, and wrinkled. There are no intermediate traits between round and wrinkled. If all human characteristics were controlled by simple pairs of dominant and recessive alleles, like the one Mendel studied, we would have tall and short people with no intermediates. Polygenic inheritance is a clear exception to Mendel's genetic ratios of 3:1 for monohybrid inheritance and 9:3:3:1 for dihybrid inheritance. Polygenic traits tends to have a bell-shaped distribution in a population. Most individuals inherit various combinations of dominant and recessive alleles. These individuals fall in the middle range of the curve, which represents the average range for a particular trait. Individuals at the ends of the curve represent those who either inherit all dominant alleles on one end, or those who inherit all recessive alleles on the opposite end. Using height as an example, most people in a population fall in the middle of the curve and are average height. Those on one end of the curve are tall individuals, and those on the opposite end are short individuals. Eye color is an example of polygenic inheritance. This trait is also thought to be influenced by up to 16 different genes. Eye color inheritance is complicated. It is determined by the amount of the brown color pigment melanin that a person has in the front part of the iris. Black and dark brown eyes have more melanin than hazel or green eyes. Blue eyes have no melanin in their iris. Several other genes that determine eye color also influence skin color and hair color. Understanding that eye color is determined by a number of different genes. For this example, we will assume that it is determined by 2 genes. In this case, a cross between 2 individuals with light brown eyes, as big B, small b, big G, small g, would produce several different phenotype possibilities. This cross would result in 5 basic phenotypes and 9 genotypes. Having all dominant alleles results in black eye color. The presence of at least 2 dominant alleles produces the black or brown color. The presence of one dominant allele produces the green color, while having no dominant allele results in blue eye color. Black eyes, BB dominant, GG dominant. Dark brown eyes, BB dominant, G dominant, G recessive, and B dominant, B recessive, GG dominant. Light brown eyes, B dominant, B recessive, B, G dominant, G recessive, and BB dominant, GG recessive, and BB recessive, and GG dominant. Green eyes, we have B dominant, B recessive, GG recessive, and BB recessive, G dominant, G recessive. Blue eyes, we have BB recessive and GG recessive. Polygenic inheritance brings about continuous variation of a trait in a population, which means the characteristic varies gradually between two extremes and does not have discrete forms. In humans, traits that show continuous variation, such as skin color, have at least 3 genes coded for it. Melanin is the pigment that determines skin color and protects it from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. The more melanin, the darker and better protected the skin will be. The skin color genes exhibit incomplete dominance. Each skin color gene has 2 forms. One form codes for high levels of melanin production, and the other form codes for low levels of melanin production. This means that the person who is heterozygous for all 3 skin color genes, A dominant, A recessive, B dominant, B recessive, C dominant, C recessive equals 3, has 3 units of pigment, whereas a person homozygous for all 3 skin color genes, A dominant, B dominant, C dominant equals 6, has 6 units of pigment. So human skin color is an example of polygenic multiple gene inheritance. Assume that 3 recessive genes A, B, and C control light skin pigmentation because lower amounts of melanin are produced. The words dominant and recessive are placed in quotation marks because these pairs of genes are not truly dominant and recessive as in some of the Darden P traits that Gregor Mendel studied. The genotype AABBCC expresses the maximum amount of melanin and produces very dark skin. The genotype AABBCC expresses the lowest amount of melanin and produces very light skin. Human skin color is a good example of polygenic, that's multiple genetic. Assume that the 3 recessive genes A, B, C control pigmentation because lower amounts of melanin are produced. Each dominant gene produces 1 unit of color, so that a wide range of intermediate skin colors are produced depending on the number of dominant genes in the genotype. For example, a genotype with 3 dominant genes and 3 recessive genes has a medium amount of melanin and an intermediate skin color. This latter genotype is a characteristic of a mulatto. The skin color may involve pairs of the alleles with 9 or more shades of the skin. In the cross between 2 mulatto genotypes, each parent produces 8 different types of gametes, and these gametes combine with each other in 64 different ways, resulting in a total of 7 skin colors. Examples of traits that are governed by genes and the environmental include weight, eye color, behavior, height, intelligence, skin color, fingerprint, cleft palate. These are examples of disorders in genetic elements: cleft palate, congenital heart disease, neural tube defects, diabetes, hypertension. Or in plant genetics, examples of polygenic characters include yield per plant, days to flower, days to maturity, seed size, seed oil content, color of stem, flower, pollen, etc., and their shapes: kernel color in wheat, corolla length in tobacco, ear size in maize. In polygenic inheritance, the dominant genes are additive, each adding 1 unit of color to the genotype. With more dominant genes, the phenotype becomes more dark red. In a polygenic inheritance, in wheat showing a cross between two intermediate parents, the offspring contains 7 different shades of kernel color based on the number of dominant genes in each genotype. So in review, polygenic inheritance may be explained by making 3 basic assumptions. Many genes determine the quantitative trait. These genes lack dominance. The action of the genes are additive. Thank you.